This is America on the Road, named Best Radio Show by the International Automotive Media Conference, and now in its 28th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. What do women want? Well, we can't tell you everything they want, but we can tell you which car brands they like and which ones they don't. We'll have the details and our thoughts on that coming up. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at DrivingToday.com/auto insurance. That's DrivingToday.com/auto-insurance. We're back to having hyphens on the show, Chris. Also in the news this week, Volkswagen is getting blowback after its top executive in China said that the company doesn't use forced labor in a plant it shares with Chinese automaker SAIC. Many human rights groups claim he's wrong. We'll have more on that coming up in a minute or two. Forced labor, not the best publicity tool for any automaker. And there's good news for people with bipolar disorder as lithium prices plunge on the world market. A giant Chinese auto battery supplier is turning to different materials, and we'll have the details on that. I'm Jack Nerad. With me is co-host Chris Teague. Chris lives at one end of the country. I live at the other. Each week we get together to talk about cars, the car industry, how you can get the most for your automotive dollar. Chris, you're in the midst of a snowstorm there in Maine, are you not?
We are. We're going to have about 18 hours of snow and maybe a foot of it when we're done. But I guess that's winter. It's got to get its jab in before spring, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I think the last time we talked, which was just a week ago or so, you had brown ground in front of you and not much snow, if any. So a big change, I guess.
Yeah, these late season storms can shove it. I'm over it.
I tell you, you get a little warm weather and it draws in the moisture and then you really get clobbered. Yeah. Well, that's our weather forecast for the upcoming week. What vehicle would you like to tell us about this week, Chris?
I've been driving the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate, and that 5-paragraph composition of a name is befitting for such a nice truck. So we can talk about that a little later.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm not sure I could say that name without taking a breath in the middle. That's a tough one. It's a long one, but it's descriptive, I guess. I will be road testing the heavily renewed 2023 Jeep Compass. Now, I'll tell you, this has an engine transplant for the new model year that is transformative. And that's just a little hint about what I will be talking about. I was one of the first journalists to drive the renewed small SUV up in Malibu, California, not too terribly far from my home. A higher rent district than my home, but farther, not too far away. So we'll tell you about that. We have a terrific guest for you. Bob Welby is Senior Director of Infiniti USA Operations. I had a chance to talk with him at length about the future of that luxury brand, and then we had a chance to drive together in the Winter Driving Event in Big Sky, Montana. So we put the Infiniti QX60 3-row SUV through its paces on everything from snow to glare ice. I mean, we had all kinds of weather conditions there. I'm sure you'll enjoy our discussion, so stay with us for that interview. But before we do anything else, we're going to be bringing you some of the most important auto-related news from around the world. And let's drive right in on this What Do Women Like and Want thing that we talked about. Turns out they like Buicks. They like Buicks a lot. Buick is the highest in female buyer representation. 55% of Buicks are owned by women. And is that surprising to you? I mean, it used to be like the doctor's car. I guess a lot of women are doctors now, huh?
Yeah, we're thankfully away from the dedicated women's cars. I can see them from the 50s now and the 40s, you know, the smaller pink cars that people really demeaning and not that nice. But if you look at Buick's advertising, you can see who they're talking to, their commercials, their vehicles, the way they're set up. So not all that surprising given if you watch any TV at all, you'll see a dozen commercials within a span of a few minutes with that are targeted at women.
Right. And I'll tell you, with 55%, that obviously means that 45% are owned by males. So it's not a huge swing. A lot of brands are pretty much 50-50. The ones that are over 50% represented by women include Mitsubishi, Mini, Lexus, Infiniti, the aforementioned Infiniti, Mazda, and Kia. So I think that all those are kind of sensible choices for women. Toyota has a ton of women owners. Their percentage is not as high as some of these others, but in terms of just raw numbers, because they sell so many cars, their brand's representation is 43%, but 606,000 women owners of Toyotas on the road these days. Honda has a ton of women buyers as well, but not nearly as much as Toyota. On the other side of the coin, you have, these are brands that are pretty heavily male dominated. The Ram, GMC, Ford, interesting to me because that's a pretty across the board kind of brand. Tesla, another interesting one to me because I see a lot of women drivers in Teslas, and Dodge, less surprising to me. Any comments on any of those, Chris?
Again, I think it comes back to the way these brands portray themselves to the community or to the world at large. If you listen to a GMC commercial, even the ones for their, relatively pedestrian SUVs, they're playing hard rock music in the back and they're driving through the desert, so, Ram obviously doesn't surprise me that much because they make trucks and a couple of vans, but I think Ford is kind of surprising given their history and some of the other models that they make, but these other ones, Mitsubishi, Mini, Lexus, you mentioned, again, those aren't all that surprising. Right.
Tesla, kind of a head scratcher there, but I'm not, who knows? And some of this is, when a family buys a car, maybe they register it in the man's name, but a woman is driving it too. So family car thing is a little bit different, but there you go. Well, let's talk about forced labor because that's a fun topic. This has a bad smell about it. Volkswagen is facing a lot of criticism, including from its own works council, which is kind of its unions, after the head of the Chinese business, Volkswagen's Chinese business, visited a factory in China. He probably doesn't go there all that often, in Jinyang, and said, oh, there's no forced labor here, even though they had been accused of using forced labor for years and years and years. And, this is the area of China where the Uyghurs are. And of course, there's a great deal of consternation about Uyghurs being imprisoned and, just treated and put in concentration camps, just horrible human rights abuses since about the year 2000. Could be crimes against humanity, according to the UN. The guy, the Volkswagen China chief's name is Ralph Brandstatter. And he spent a day and a half touring the facility that they operate with China's auto company called SAIC. Typically in China, a Western brand will team with a Chinese-owned brand. And Brandstatter said he saw no signs of forced labor. I don't know what those signs are. I don't know that they have guys with whips and, guns pointing at the people who are working, but this just doesn't have a good smell about it, does it, Chris?
This is difficult for me to, I guess, understand. First of all, without knowing how their exact business operation works, these are huge supply chains. So just like we saw with Hyundai a few months ago with their operations, one of their suppliers had employed children. So there are any number of these sort of supplier companies or auxiliary companies that could have some issues here. But spending a day and a half in a factory and then coming away and saying, I've investigated myself and we've done nothing wrong, that just doesn't sit quite right. I mean, I think if you're really serious about digging into this and figuring out where the issues are, you'd have a team there for quite a while.
Yeah, you're probably not old enough to remember this reference, Chris, but there was a sergeant in a prison camp in the TV show Hogan's Heroes who always said, I see nothing, I see nothing. Sergeant Schultz, I think, was who it was, or maybe it was Colonel Klink who used to use that line, but we used to see it all the time. And, it smacks of that, unfortunately. I mean, a lot of human rights organizations are saying there is forced labor in this area. The Uyghurs are definitely being discriminated against at best, maybe much worse than just being discriminated against, being forced into labor. And I think Volkswagen is sticking with this plant because of business reasons. If they were to pull out of here before 2030, I think there would be business repercussions to them. So, I mean, it's not a good situation. And, I hope it ends quickly.
Yeah, and if it's the case that they have to stay there for another 7-8 years or so, then there's going to have to be some sort of investigation or some sort of oversight there to make sure this doesn't continue if it has happened previously.
Right. Well, we've talked a lot about lithium prices and just lithium overall as a raw material that's critical for building electric vehicles. Now, interestingly enough, lithium prices are way, way down. Several reasons for that. One of which is the sales of electric vehicles in the Chinese market fell drastically earlier in this year after being up very significantly the year before because the Chinese are changing the way they're doing their price incentives to buy vehicles. And, you know, you and I have talked about government price incentives over and over again. I mean, it can really change the market in a minute, and that's what's happened with the Chinese market, and thus with lithium prices. It could be a good thing overall, or it could just be a blip, but it certainly shows you that things change rapidly.
They do, and I think it's going to continue to change even more the next couple of years as the Inflation Reduction Act forces, or at least coerces, companies to start sourcing materials from countries that we have free trade agreements with, whether that's the United States or its allies. So the pricing, I mean, it's going to be, and I hate to keep using this word, but it will be interesting to see where these things go because we talk about this a lot, but the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, is going to change a lot of things with electric vehicles here and elsewhere.
Right. And raw materials are so critical, and it's different types of raw materials now being necessary for making electric vehicles, and that's a game changer.
Yeah, and when solid state batteries finally hit the ground, those are going to change it even further. So I can't wait to watch all this play out. Thankfully, I don't have any stock in any of these things right now.
Yeah, I would not wade into the commodities market and buy lithium right now, but maybe it's the time, you know, buy low, sell high. Could be the play. In any case, when we come back, we will have something that we do understand quite well, and that's vehicle reviewing. And we will have two interesting vehicles to review. The GMC Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate. I think I got all of those. And I was driving the 2023 Jeep Compass. So stay with us for that with Chris Teague. This is Jack Nerad with you. And thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad with you for road test time. And Chris, you had a road test vehicle with such a long name. I'm not sure I could do it and get it in this segment, but I'm going to have you go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah, I always get a chuckle out of this. And when the delivery person was texting me the other day to tell me he was bringing it, he just texted the first couple of names and then stopped. But this is the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate. Now, if you and I, Jack, know about this, but if you've been a GMC fan for a long time, the Denali trim has been sort of the top of the line for most of their vehicles, about as high as you could get. Now they've gone a step further with this Ultimate trim, and it really is ultimate. I mean, it is more than anyone would ever need in a pickup truck. So it comes with two powertrains. You can get a choice. The standard powertrain, which is an awesome one, the one I have is the 3.0 liter Duramax diesel. That truck starts at just around $83,000. You can upgrade with a 6.2 liter V8 starting at 84 grand. So, and then you add options on top of that. So, as I mentioned, the 3.0 liter Duramax diesel is a turbo diesel V6, 305 horsepower, 495 pound-feet of torque. Jack, I want to get your opinion on this in just a minute, but this is a luxury truck with over 9,000 pounds of towing and a diesel powertrain. What do you think about that?
I like it a lot. I mean, I like the diesel powertrain for a couple of reasons. One, tons of torque, so it feels actually better than the horsepower figure would suggest it would feel in terms of power, and it sounds like it's very powerful. And that torque is, of course, very useful for towing too, and that's really what it's for here. It's not for speed; it's for towing. So, it's a drivetrain I like, and it also gives you generally giant range.
Yeah, it does. I think it's almost 500 miles on a tank. I've been driving all week, and it's just now down to like 380 miles or something. So it's been fantastic, especially after sitting outside charging an electric vehicle in the winter for a little while. But as I mentioned, so this truck comes with a 10-speed automatic transmission. The diesel in this thing, I've expressed my love of diesels both in the F-150 when they offered it there and in the Ram. This is a fantastic diesel. I think a full-size pickup with these powertrains are great they make great daily drivers because they're smooth and you don't have a lot of horsepower, but there's plenty here. And especially, this truck comes on 22-inch wheels, and it did not come with snow tires. So I'm driving on all seasons in the snow. But I got to tell you, the low range on the low torque on this thing, it barely takes any gas to get out of the snow. And in four-wheel drive, automatic four-wheel drive, it tackles everything just fine. So no issues there at all. And the 10-speed is smooth. I think the only thing that people might miss here, Jack, is a little bit of the noise that you get. I mean, the other powertrain's a V8, so neither one is going to be super quiet. But when you're sitting in the cabin, you really do feel it sounds like a semi truck, just a little bit quieter. And I really like that. It's one of the things I love about diesels in these trucks. So as you mentioned, it's not quick, but it has plenty of torque. And when you put your foot down, you can feel the thrust that this thing has. So I think it's 9,100 pounds of towing in the configuration that I had. So that's plenty for me and plenty for most people. That's a pretty darn big boat. You're not going to be towing a fifth wheel or anything with this, but more than enough for a luxury pickup truck.
Yeah, terrific. Terrific. Yeah. And of course, great interior, I imagine, too. I want to hear about that. That's probably really well done.
Yeah, I'm just pulling my notes out here because I took a bunch on the interior. This is almost a Cadillac level interior. If you were going to buy a Cadillac pickup truck or if you wanted one, this would be your option. So this is Alpine Umber leather with heated and cooled and massaging front seats. Power running boards to get into this guy. Very luxurious truck. You sit into this thing. The front buckets are deep. They're wide. They're supportive. They're absolutely accommodating of my American-sized body. Too wide to fit in a lot of smaller trucks. So this one worked out well for me. This is a crew cab. It's the only version you can get in is a crew cab and a short bed, which is great for families if you're going to use this thing as an everyday truck. Which for $84,000 or $83,000, I assume most people would be using this as their only vehicle. So. 5 seating for 5, plenty of headroom, plenty of leg room in the back. It's got a 13.4-inch touchscreen up front with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, 12-speaker Bose stereo, head-up display. And the thing I want to talk about last here is the multi-pro tailgate. GMC and Chevy have this. It folds out in several different ways. You can fold it down, use it as steps to climb in, or you can open up a little bit so you can carry longer cargo. This one came with a kicker audio system built into it. I can't tell you when I would ever use that, but if you have a beach party and you want to throw the tailgate open, you have subwoofers built right into the tailgate. So
yeah, you're not picnicking right now, right? In the snow.
Yeah, Jack, I'm going to hand it over to you for your review, but all around, I think this is an expensive pickup truck, but for the right person, if you're looking for luxury, it's not going to get much better than this.
Yeah, I bet that's a sweetheart. I bet it has great ride quality too, and just does a lot of things right. So
absolutely.
And I kind of like that diesel rumble. That's kind of cool too.
I'm into it, yeah.
Well, I was driving a vehicle that is heavily revised for 2023, and that's the Jeep Compass. And I think it's transformative. I mean, it's that big a change just from a powertrain change, and I think it's good. They say competition improves the breed. I think that's certainly the case with this Jeep Compass. Compass kind of was the only game in town for that small off-road SUV. Certainly smaller and less expensive than the Wrangler. And then along came the Ford Bronco Sport. And suddenly the Jeep Compass started to get a lot better so proving that competition does improve the breed. Last year, Jeep improved the interior of the Compass. This year, it was the engine room that they decided to do a big overhaul on, and a great idea. I mean, both of these vehicles, the Compass and the Bronco Sport, are about 173 inches long. So that's significantly shorter than even something like the Toyota RAV4. And they're kind of in the same segment, but, they're kind of off in this off-road area. They're actually a little bit shorter than the HR-V from Honda, which is, in theory, a size lower than they are. But it shows that there's mission creep and size creep in this segment. The good thing about the Compass, beyond its Jeep heritage, is its off-pavement abilities. That's really the reason to consider this. If you're just going to be commuting back and forth in a small SUV, unless you really love Jeep styling and want to be part of the Jeep thing and do the Jeep Wave and all of that stuff, I would suggest there's others that might be better. But man, if you are doing any kind of off-roading, the Jeep Compass is the thing to look at. And now, especially with this new engine, this new turbocharged engine, prior to this, as recently as last year, it had a 2.4-liter four-cylinder that was just so-so at best. It just wasn't all that good. Not one of my favorite engines, certainly. And they've gone to a 2-liter turbocharged engine with a lot more horsepower and a broader torque curve. That is transformative. The Compass is available in 5 different trims: Sport, Latitude, Latitude Luxe, Limited, and Trailhawk. I was driving the Limited and Trailhawk at this event that Jeep was sponsoring. The Limited has a base price of about $37,000, and you got to go. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm getting blown away by just prices of everything these days, and heaven knows that's a lot of money for a smaller compact SUV. What's your take?
Yeah, you got to really want one of these things to feel great about paying that price, but it's competitive with the rest of the market. As you say, almost everything is getting to be that expensive or is already past that mark at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, the price as tested of the vehicle I was driving around Malibu in the hills of Malibu, $45,000, almost $46,000. And nice vehicle, don't get me wrong, liked it a lot, but man, that's a lot of money, it seems to me. The Trailhawk that I was driving probably it cost about that much. It has a base price of $37,340. It has a lot of stuff on it that makes it really great off-road, so I think the value is there. But my goodness, that's a lot of dough. Well, they have changed it, and in the Limited's favor, it has a really great interior. It has an interior that rivals that of a luxury brand compact utility. A lot of color in there in many of these vehicles. In fact, I talked to Scott Talon, who is the Jeep director of product, and he describes the interior of many of these vehicles as black holes, and he wanted to get away from that. Interestingly, in some areas, in some compasses, they are kind of just all black. I mean, that's what the interior is. But not in the Limited and not in the Trailhawk. They have, you can choose kind of multicolor interior that really sets it off, I think, in a nice way. Leather trim seats, 8-way power adjustment, ventilated seats are available, so you can have those kind of bells and whistles. Pretty good cargo space. Again, this is not a big vehicle, even in its size class. It has 27.2 cubic feet of cargo space behind the second row seats, though. That's a little less than the Bronco Sport, but it's pretty ample. With the rear seat folded, 59, almost 60 cubic feet of cargo space. So pretty good. I mean, again, smaller. One of the big pluses, though, Uconnect 5 with a 10.1-inch touchscreen. That 10.1-inch touchscreen is just terrific. And boy, these graphics are sharp. I mean, bang, they just assault your eyes. Easy to choose when you're, driving around. I love that. Big graphics that you can, hit with your index finger and not be going all around and, I didn't quite get that. Full featured wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. So a lot of great stuff here. The basic audio system has 6 speakers. You can get an Alpine audio system with a subwoofer that has 9 speakers, so that's good. Plenty of USB ports, all of that stuff. So, and good safety stuff too. Drowsy driver detection has been installed this year. Rear seat reminder alert. You could look over your shoulder or remember that your kids are back there. That'd be useful. Security alarm. So a ton of safety equipment. Highway assist semi-autonomous driving. You can get in the Limited and Trailhawk, so which works quite well. And adaptive cruise control with stop and go, kind of the poor man's highway driving assist, is also available. So a lot to like about this. I mean, what's your overall take, Chris?
Yeah, I think we could bemoan the fact that it costs, more than what we think it does. But the reality is, in its segment, I think it's one of those. It's a unique offering that has the off-road ability that some people really want and need. That like the Toyota RAV4 has an adventure trim that can do sort of that light off-roading thing. But the Jeep is likely the best option if that's your deal. So maybe worth the money for some.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we like both of these vehicles quite a bit. We're a little blown away by the prices, but that GMC Sierra Denali, very, very nice, and just totally renewed Jeep Compass. I think take a look at it now if you're in the market for a smaller SUV. Really terrific. And when we come back, we will have a terrific guest for you. And his name is Bob Welby. He's the Senior Director of Infiniti USA. So stay with us for that, and we'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. It's Jack Nerad with you, and we are in Montana with a terrific guest. Bob Welby of Infiniti is with us, and Bob, I've seen two titles for you. Describe your title to me, would you?
I'm the Senior Director of Operations for Infiniti in the U.S., which is a nice general title, right? That means covering all areas of...
So you run things.
That's probably an overstatement, but we do quite a bit around the customer experience, model line strategy, making sure we're selling the right number of cars in the right number of places and the right colors. Really anything to do with running the car business in the U.S.
Well, we're here for winter driving. It should be terrific. I'm really excited about it. Tell us kind of the rationale for this event. It's kind of a different event, isn't it?
Yeah, we love to do some things differently. You know us and our style, right? But we thought this was a great opportunity to showcase some of the technology in our cars, namely the four-wheel drive systems. You know, there's a variety of them across, our different sedans and SUVs, and it's just a great opportunity to get out into a beautiful setting and put these cars through their paces and show really what they're designed to do.
Right. Really incredibly beautiful setting. I'm looking forward to getting deeper into it. I had a nice indoctrination as we were driving into this, but you made a really interesting presentation last night about Infiniti, about the philosophy of Infiniti. Get us into that, would you?
Yeah, that's it. It starts with actually the logo of Infiniti, right? That comes to that point, right? Which is really about our vision of an infinite road, and that infinite road representing this infinitely developing relationship between the car and the driver, right? So it really starts from there. And then driving that deeper into kind of what we're about and how it drives the cars and the experiences we develop. It's about really being about luxury that should be lived in for consumers, not just looked at, enjoyed as part of their life. And that shows up in being human in the customer experience, daring in what we do in our designs, and certainly forward thinking, what's coming ahead and how can we be better for our consumers.
There's kind of the museum type of luxury, right? I mean, you set everything up and then you don't do anything with it, and you have this display. And I think you're the opposite of that, right? I mean, it's lived in, it's luxurious, but at the same time, you're using that luxury.
Absolutely. We were looking at some pictures last night, and one of them, you imagine an image of this beautiful home, beautiful living room, nice, wonderful, luxurious couch, and a couple of kids jumping on it, right? This is it. It's luxury, it's beauty that should be enjoyed for real life. And vehicles are the same way. Beautiful interiors, yet they're functional. You need to use these vehicles for transportation, for enjoyment, the pleasure of driving. It should be used.
Yeah, I mean, some people have vehicles and they never drive them, right? I mean, the most expensive vehicles maybe never get driven, but that's really a waste. And why don't we dive into your product line? Because you have an interesting product line, and I think people ought to hear about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, right now we have 5 products that we have on the road. Right, starting with our Q50 sedan, sports sedan. You're going to have fun driving that today. Hopefully you don't end up in the snow bank. When you say really get into it, I don't want you to get into the snow bank.
I can't guarantee anything on that, but we'll do our best.
I appreciate that. We think we'll have fun with that one. And then we have a great lineup of SUVs, right? With the QX50 and the QX55, those are our compact, stylish SUVs. The QX60 is our 3-row SUV, our newest offering on the road there, offering the most that we have currently in terms of technology and performance and a drivetrain. And then there's our big behemoth, the QX80. I love this one to get around. This is a fabulously, a powerfully dynamic vehicle, yet very elegant and really easy to maneuver, which you'll also see today on the track.
Well, you're heavy SUV, right? But that's really what the luxury market is, isn't it? I mean, in some ways, the luxury market is almost a truck market these days.
It is. You've seen it over the past 3 to 7 years. We've seen this shift more towards SUVs, small SUVs, all the way to large SUVs. Now, the sedan market isn't gone at all, so we'll still be present there, as futures evolve and stuff that we can't talk about today.
Feel free to talk about it.
But I won't. But absolutely, the SUVs that are really playing very well for us in the segment, and the market is going there. Customers are certainly asking for more of them.
What about, say, the QX60 is a favorite feature of yours, something that you really think you hit it out of the ballpark?
Oh, jeepers, man, there's so much there. I'll stay on the interior. I'm an inside guy. The car should be used. I love the interior of this vehicle. It is so elegant. If you'll get a chance to sit in the top of the line QX60 Autograph, the quilted pattern and the design that they have and that our teams were able to put together is absolutely gorgeous. And it almost distracts you from all the functional tech that's in there. But the interior design is absolutely probably my number one.
And then you want to show off the all-wheel drive system. Talk about that a little bit.
We absolutely will. So each of our cars are set up slightly differently, but the intelligent all-wheel drive system is really around being what you need at the time that you need it. So we'll take the Q50 for example. As a sports sedan, it's a rear-wheel drive biased vehicle. But at any point, if it's sensing wheel slipping, it's going to shift power up to the front of the car in a 50-50 type of ratio to really give you the traction that you need. You juxtapose that with an SUV like a QX60 or a QX55, they're a front-wheel drive biased car, but can also shift to a 50-50 based on the conditions. And we're going to let you see what that feels like today when we put you out there on the road.
Yeah, what do you think we're going to find out today? What do you think our takeaway is going to be after we've done all the exercises?
I think the main thing you're going to take away, outside of a little bit of fun, which is the design, I think you're going to take away confidence. Is that the vehicles, the way they're designed, right, and the way they're set to adjust to the conditions on the road, it gives you a confidence as you're navigating what would be everyday driving, right, that this vehicle is going to perform the way it needs to and allow you to get where you need to go safely.
Yeah. Let's talk about the market a bit. This has been a crazy market for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, inventory problems, obviously disease affected everything, and a lot of people couldn't visit dealerships for years at a time. Inventory constrained. Talk about what you've experienced at Infiniti.
Yeah, you're right. It's been amazing. I've not seen anything like this in my close to 30 years in the business, right? It has been absolutely amazing, brought on by the tragedy, of course. But I will tell you, there's been some amazingly positive things that come out of it. Having to adjust to supply chain changes, having to adjust which models are prioritized to put on customer lots, and even our dealers have had to adjust their business. And it's even brought, what I'm really pleased to see, is it's brought the advent of better technology in terms of contactless experiences, both in shopping for vehicles and servicing vehicles. And I think some of those things are going to stick, and it's going to be a really good thing for us.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about last night, too, is the fact that you do pick up and delivery. And, certainly that was maybe spurred, or you perfected that during COVID times. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, in terms of servicing, ownership of the car, convenience is always something huge for our customers, right? And the ability to go to them, pick up their vehicle, service it, and bring it back to them at their home or at their work is something we're going to lean more and more into. The concept is nothing new, but as Infiniti, you know us being human-centric, customer experience-centric, we're going to do it really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. Are you running into inventory constraints? Do you have relatively few vehicles on the ground and available?
Yes, we have, right? It's been different model by model, right? Because in the supply chain, it can be certain components. You'll hear semiconductors a lot, but that can show up in a component of a screen in the dash or a rear lift gate. So we've had model by model supply challenges there, but we have seen also recently more supply coming back and at our stores. So we're seeing an increase in supply and an increase in volume on most of our model lines.
Yeah. Talk about customer experience. I mean, certainly Infiniti is trying to differentiate on customer experience versus the other luxuries and the other brands. Tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's it really starts with our retail network, right? Our retailers that are out there across the country, 204 of them, right, that are dedicated to the customer experience. 30 years ago, the brand was born on the concept of the total ownership experience, right? Really the customer being at the center. So this shows up in the day-to-day operations at our stores. The big programs like we talk about, like service valet, going to pick up your car, but really even inside the store itself, when they're greeted in the service drive or greeted in the showroom, it's the culture that's established there and the training in our teams there that really are around what are the needs of the customer.
Right, and trying to develop loyalty, right? Customer loyalty to you, to your brand, to the vehicle. Some of that is vehicles, but a lot of that is how those folks are treated. I mean, when you're buying a luxury vehicle, you probably have your choice of a lot, right?
Absolutely.
20 brands, so you have to differentiate in many ways, don't you?
It absolutely does, and the customer experience really is at the center of that, because you're right. Customers, particularly in a luxury space, they have their choice, right? And doing this right, and loyalty also is a long-term play. It's not done on one interaction. It's over multiple interactions, which is why that ownership experience is so important to us. That through the life cycle of the customer, whether it's their financing, the servicing of their car, if they have some kind of an issue, that we're there to support their experience, and we know that generates more loyalty to the brand.
Right. Let's talk a little. I know you can't talk about specifics on future product, but I do want to talk to you about electrification,
Sure.
EVs. Certainly a lot of luxuries are going in that direction. I wonder what, in general, Infiniti's plans are. Certainly your parent company was a leader in EVs.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, the parent company, so Motor Corporation, was a leader with the Leaf, right, in terms of not only the vehicle itself, but developing the technology underneath it, right? So there's a rich knowledge that's growing inside the corporation, and that will eventually show up in Infiniti and be the beneficiary of that. What I'm most excited about for electrification for us, most folks are familiar with the acceleration, right, and the performance you immediately get. I'm excited to apply the Infiniti DNA to electrification, the design, right, the interior setup of the vehicle, exterior design, but also the hospitality that shows up when a customer experiences our car. Those are going to be some of the differentiators that go with what you'd expect. That driving performance, the range in the vehicle, the technology, that'll all be there. We're excited to bring the Infiniti element to that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of luxury brands in particular are very enthusiastic about switching over to electric vehicles and becoming 100% electric vehicles. It strikes me you're not going there yet. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly there's a move towards electrification. But one thing that's certain for me, Jack, is the market is not going to be 100% electric vehicles. Right? There's always going to be a place for a diversity of powertrains for certain customers, and we plan to be there. Certainly, our future is an electrified future. Right? We're going to be moving more towards that, and you'll see that in our products that I won't talk to you about today.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely it's moving in that direction. But I don't think it'll be all 100% electrified cars.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the next year or so is going to hold just for the luxury car buyer? What it's going to look like?
Generally, I think the luxury car buyer is going to see an increasing supply. I don't think our supply chain is going to be back to normal for quite some time, but I do see the premium space coming back to more stability than what it was previously. I think we're seeing it in the market today, so that's one that I'll see, right? And I think a need for us as a group of operators, if you will, in the premium space to be ever more customer focused. Right, if you will, on the customer needs, what they need in a new vehicle and what they need in experience. I expect a resurgence of a focus on that in this next year.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is next for Infiniti in the next couple of years?
Oh, well, next couple of years, coming up in this June, we're going to be revealing our QX60 monograph. So we'll pull the cover off that for you. That'll give a sneak peek as to what the next generation QX80 is going to look like. So we're really excited about that because there's still a rich space in the U.S. premium market for those full-size SUVs.
Yeah.
So we'll show you that, and then there's a lot more to come that I won't tell you about today.
Yeah, I mean, that's an area where, especially the full-size three-row SUV, I don't know how they go with electrification. I can't even say it. I'm so excited about whether you can do it or not.
I have high confidence in the technological advancements. I think there'll be a lot of technology advancements in terms of solid-state battery and some of the advances in this space that are really going to enable a broader application of electrification to bigger, heavier vehicles.
Is there anything more our listeners and viewers should hear about Infiniti before we let you go?
Oh my goodness, I'd say just wait for more. The vehicles we have right now are doing fabulous. So QX60, QX80, the lineup there is really delivering what we wanted to deliver. And we're excited for them just to experience more and more of what the brand's going to have to offer in the coming years.
Well, terrific. Bob Welby, thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, Jay.
And stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road.
Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris T. Jack Nerad with you for listener question time. It's the final segment. I mean, this just goes so fast, Chris, when we're talking about cars, but I think we have some pretty good listener questions for us to answer. And it's simple to submit a listener question to us. Just send them to editor@drivingtoday.com, editor@drivingtoday.com, and we'll put them on an upcoming show. Let's take this question. This is a question from Greta in San Luis Obispo, California. And it kind of harkens back to something, I think. What do you think about electric vehicles with range extenders? Does it make sense for an EV to have a small internal combustion engine to charge the battery? Does this take the pressure off using public charging? What's your thoughts on that?
This is such an interesting question. The BMW i3 did it a while ago. Mazda's doing it, I think, in Europe with a rotary engine now to be a range extender. I think the reality is that adding a small gas engine and a gas tank is cheaper than adding a larger battery pack. It also, it makes it a little cheaper to buy the vehicle. I don't think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of you on public charging unless you, how do I want to say this? I think you're still going to have to charge in public if you're out on a road trip. I mean, I think the range extender is not going to give you hundreds of miles of extra range there. I'm a little on the fence here, Jack, because I'm not one of those people that says we should cut gas immediately and move straight to electric. I think there's going to be a phase-in period here, but at the same time, I don't know how I feel about range extenders. What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of both minds on these things. In a lot of ways, does it make sense to carry an internal combustion engine that is then going to put out CO2, and everybody's so concerned about that, it's going to put out some CO2, there's going to be some combustion. So it's not a pure electric. I think regulations will treat it as a hybrid, as a plug-in hybrid, as opposed to a pure electric, and that has ramifications, governmental regulations and ramifications. So we have that to deal with. I'm not certain about all that. I think on the other hand, the right kind of range extender gives you just tons of added range. It will supply enough electricity to help you go. If you run out of battery power, you'll be able to continue and continue and continue, and maybe not have to use public charging. It really depends on the specifications of what that range extender is. You certainly, with a plug-in charged vehicle, plug-in hybrid vehicle, want to start with a full charge whenever you can, right? So it could help you on these. I don't think it's going to help from a regulation point of view, because I think there are fairly hard and fast rules about this is pure electric, this is zero emission. These would not be zero emission vehicles, so they wouldn't get the same benefits from regulations that others would. And on the other hand, maybe they make a lot of sense in terms of prompting a lot of people who otherwise would never buy a pure electric to buy a vehicle that is powered by electricity most of the time, because then they have that little added safety of when you run out of charge, you have something that will help you, and you don't have to rely on finding a charger that's working where you are when that happens.
Yeah, now that we're into talking about this, I was thinking maybe a plug-in hybrid might just be the better way to go to start. I don't know. I don't know how many range extenders we're going to see in the coming years, but plug-in hybrids may be better. But you do make a good point.
They're probably, almost one and the same in a way, depending on how you're looking at it, right? I mean,
yeah.
A range extender or a plug-in hybrid, they're going to have an internal combustion engine that can supply electricity. And in the case of a plug-in hybrid, certainly the gasoline engine can also drive the vehicle. In a range extender, it would not drive the vehicle typically.
Sure.
I think that's the distinction. Well, let's take another question. I'm looking for a small SUV or a hatchback. Seems like everyone is buying an SUV, though. Do you have an opinion on which is better? This is from William. He's in Pueblo, Colorado. What do you say to William?
I actually do have an opinion on this. We've talked plenty of times about my ownership. I own a Volkswagen Golf GTI, and I've said this before, but I've spent time looking at crossovers that I might want to replace this with. What could I do that would be comparable to this vehicle? And honestly, it's hard to beat the size, the hatchback's cargo volume, its maneuverability, and it's a fun to drive vehicle. Now, that said, I don't have ground clearance at all. When it snows, I have to shovel the driveway completely before I can leave, even with winter tires. The ride's a little rough. It's very low to the ground, and it's also very small to sit in too. It's not a ton of headroom and things like that. So I think there's a balance, but if you're looking and you want that maneuverability, there are cars out there that can be had with just enough, with more utility than some small crossovers. It really just, you have to weigh the kind of pros and cons on, can I use this every day?
Yeah, it used to be that a distinctive factor was the SUV, the small SUV would have all-wheel drive, or the ability to buy all-wheel drive. Now we're seeing some small SUVs, or touted as SUVs by their manufacturers, that are only front-wheel drive. So it's just the shape that's more SUV-like, which isn't that different than a hatchback shape, really. In a lot of ways, it's hard to distinguish one from the other. I like hatchbacks because they're cars, and I like the way a car drives a little bit more than I like the way the typical SUV drives. And in this case, though, you're really splitting hairs, because some of these SUVs are virtual cars anyway, And then it depends on a lot of other factors, what the powertrain is, how the suspension is set up. So I think you've made a great choice for your family, and for you, it makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I don't have the ride height, so I can't see as well as some people think they're going to get. But take a look at the Chevy Trax and the Buick Encore. Those things are all but hatchbacks in name. I mean, I think there's not a lot going on at the low end of the segment that you can't get in a nice hatchback these days. The SUV
Right.
segment, that is.
Well, and I think another thing in favor of the hatchback is they're typically less expensive than the things that tout themselves as being SUVs that are essentially the same size. So that's something to look at too. And they get a little bit better fuel economy, especially if you're going front drive as opposed to all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, so there you go on that. I guess we're lining up on Team Hatchback there, mostly, which is okay. And let's take another question. This is from Tom. Tom is in Duluth, Minnesota, where it's probably horribly cold right now. I'm looking to buy a pickup truck, and I think I want a mid-sized truck like a Tacoma or Frontier, a Toyota Tacoma or a Nissan Frontier. Do you have any thoughts about what I should buy? Some selections there, aren't there?
There are, and I will tell you, the Tacoma is a very popular truck. They sell a ton of those things. It's very capable off-road, but if you look at it compared to the rest of the segment, especially the Frontier and the upcoming Chevy Colorado and eventually the Ford Ranger, which will come out, I think, in 2024, it's an aging truck in this segment. And it's also a little awkward inside. It's not the most comfortable for me or a lot of other people to drive. I think, Jack, we were talking about this before. The Nissan Frontier, the most recent updates to that truck have made it is surprisingly luxurious inside. It has great ride quality, great capability, and you can get it in, I think, a Pro 4X trim that goes just as well off-road, if not better than some other models in this segment. We talked a little bit about the Chevy Colorado over the break too. That's all new for 2023. So there's some great options out there. And I think a mid-sized truck is a great pick for a lot of people. You save money on fuel. It's easier to drive around, easier to maneuver. And you have a lot of the same capability that, a lot of people don't need a full-size pickup truck. So I'm on board with this purchase.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'm on board with your recommendation too. I haven't driven the Chevy Colorado, so I can't really comment on that other than to expect it to be better than the one we've seen up till now. But I really like the Nissan Frontier. I've had a chance to drive it extensively, both on and off-road. As you say, it has good off-road chops. Certainly is a comfortable vehicle on the road. I mean, the previous Frontier lasted for like 12, 15 years in the marketplace. It really had a long history. And now there's a new one with a new powertrain, and I think it's just top notch. So that would be my pick, I think, among the mid-sizes right now. Certainly there's a lot to like about the Tacoma, especially if you go off-road. But, I'm lining up with the Nissan Frontier right now. I
think I'm on board with that.
Well, very good. And I guess that brings us to the end of the show. Of course, there's things to talk about. You certainly have a website you'd like to talk about, I think, Chris.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about March. I'm very excited all the time about Your Test Driver, but I have to tell you about March. We're running a giveaway on Your Test Driver for tickets to the Team O'Neill Rally School in New Hampshire, and also a ticket to any Skip Barber location for a one-day race driving course. If you've followed Skip Barber at all, they have pro drivers. A lot of the pro drivers you see out in IndyCar and NASCAR have been through Skip Barber. So these are great opportunities. All you have to do is go to @YourTestDriver on Instagram. Follow us there. Follow us on Facebook @YourTestDriver and share the post. And we'll run a giveaway at the end of the month. And 2 people will be headed to be driving in the woods or on a racetrack somewhere.
That's awesome. That's really, really great stuff. And, I like that website a lot. I spent some time on it this past week at yourtestdriver.com. So check that out. And I'd love to have people check out my newest book, Dance in the Dark. It's not a car book, but there are car chases in it. It's pretty cool car chases, too, I think. I can't wait to see the movie version of it because there's this one car chase where this it'll be awesome. In any case, it's a crime thriller. It's inspired by true crime. And I think you should, if you would, take a look at it. I think you'll like it. And go on to that. And if you like our show, which we absolutely hope you do, and you've come to the end of the show, so you must have liked it at least that much, please listen on this radio station each week if you're listening on the radio. We also have a podcast version, and of course a YouTube version where you can see what we look like, and it's not too scary. I'm a little scarier than Chris, but that's the way it goes. So check that out, and remember that We're on the SportsMap Radio website, and on your favorite podcast outlet. So look for us, America on the Road. And join us again next time right here for another edition of America on the Road.